Welcome to the final portion of our Kenya travels, Maasai Mara, July 25th through 31st in 2022. We stayed in 2 different locations in the Maasai Mara area. We arrived in the northern area to stay at Governor's Camp. And our flight over there was interesting in that it was so green compared to where we had just come from in Samburu. The airport itself was very small and very rustic, but it served its purpose. The first animal we saw was a monitor lizard. I never thought I would see one of those here. Here we are at Governor's Camp, our first location. It was very much luxury. We had the opportunity to stay in what is considered a family tent, tent number 26. It had a front room area and a back room area. The front room area, we went ahead and quickly used that as a staging area for our travels each day, as we were out on game drives almost all day, every day. The bedroom area was large. They provided bug spray and we never needed to use it. The bathroom area was interesting in that the shower had no walls or curtains or anything. Worked just fine. We loved our daily visitors. Pumbas came by almost every day. We had only been sitting for 10 minutes when an elephant decided to arrive, so we immediately had to evacuate the tables and go up into the dining tent area with everybody else. It was quite a thrill to have that visitor. It was a luxury dining experience and the service was impeccable. This is what's considered indoor dining there. It was fantastic. The other side of the camp followed the river, so we took a walk along there. It was also interesting to see how many pumbas they had on that side of the river as well. The river itself was actually beautiful and we got to see it from every angle. It was filled with hippos and crocodiles and all sorts of other creatures. The hippos themselves were very loud at night with their noises that they made. I'm really glad I brought my earplugs, but I also wanted to listen to them. The crocodiles were huge and plentiful in the Mara River right there next to the camp. The pumbas were not bothered by us at all. This is us relaxing before we go out for our afternoon game drive. We were in the Mara area for 6 days. The first 2 days we were on the east side of the river, shown where the arrows are. This is the vehicle we were in, and our guide's name was Moses. We had a private guided tour, so it was just the 3 of us in the vehicle, and we had access to the vehicle all times of the day. This is us enjoying the space and the openness of the vehicle. First animal we saw was lions. They were everywhere. It was so interesting to see the different positions they would be in. Most likely we saw them on their back. I can't imagine any other animal getting away with that other than a lion. This is a topi. We called him the policeman because he was always on the termite mound. There was always one topi on the termite mound and the rest of the herd was grazing. So we called him the policeman because he stood watch. The skies themselves were breathtaking in the way the light shone through. Yet another lion, a male, on his back after a large meal, we're assuming. The male's paws were absolutely huge, and yet they look so soft and furry like their tail. I wouldn't want to play with it though and find out what would happen. The other interesting thing about lions is that they seem to be covered in flies. One technique that they use for getting rid of them is to shake their head. You can see literally this stop action photo of the flies flinging themselves off their head, and now less flies. And this is how close we were able to get with our vehicle. This is Chongo. He will appear again later in this video. And he was yawning and he was just getting up. He's blind in his right eye, probably from a fight, not sure why. And he decided to walk over and to get a drink from a local watering hole. There were several jeeps around us while this was happening, and he didn't seem to care one bit that there was jeeps there. He must have drank for at least a good 3 to 5 minutes. Seemed like forever. This is him after he had his fill, and see that full belly from his meal that he had earlier. and the different variety of Jeeps around there. This is a beautiful end of day picture with the light streaming through and this beautiful tree accenting the beauty of it all. Listen to this young male lion as he does a contact call. A pride of about 20 lions walked towards our Jeep. It was a thrill to get to see them up close and in such quantities. There must have been about 4 or 5 females and the rest were cubs. There's this fun game that they like to play and it's called Pounce. There it goes. The interactions of the lions show that their play is not actually play, but training for hunting. You can see the different techniques that they use to look, to grab, and you see these two bouncing after each other. The day itself was beautiful. We consistently had between 75 degrees and 80 degrees weather. There was a light wind this day. It was glorious to have the morning light on this scene of these lions playing with each other, training for hunting. Isn't it interesting how their fur just melts so beautifully with the grass? They almost become invisible at times. When the grass is shorter, they're actually seen more. And when the grass is taller, they have greater advantage when it comes to hunting. Look at how interesting their coats are. It almost looks like a leopard, but it's a lion. Beautiful female adults. There were some younger males. This is a female, and just look at how her fur completely blends in. She walks right in front of the Jeep, didn't even think twice about it. And here we go to the other side of the Jeep. We're just like moving rocks to them, so they don't care that there's humans in there. There's nothing to it. We're just part of the Jeep, so it doesn't mean anything that we're there. We left about 6:30 in the morning in order to be able to put ourselves in a position to have this beautiful morning light. It's all the luck of the draw as to whether you want to cross these prides or not. Look at the goofy face that I have. I'm just so excited there's 2 lions behind me. And to just watch them play and move about and not care about the Jeeps and to just go about their business. They later went to a termite mound to go ahead and study the horizon for dinner. These are 2 adult male cheetahs that were part of a 3-cheetah coalition. The third party passed away several days before this was taken to a spear. Very sad. There were different types of antelope. That's what they're considered across the Mara. Gazelles, zebra, impala, wildebeest. Because we had our own private guided tour, we normally brought lunch and breakfast with us each day. So we were able to stay out for hours and hours and see so many different animals in so many different ways. We ended up by what's called the Hippo pools, the cul-de-sac crossing. We met this bull elephant. He's approximately 50 to 60 years old. There were crocodiles strewn everywhere and he just didn't give one care about them. He just went ahead and ate and drank to his heart's content. Look at all of those crocodiles. I think we counted about 20 when we were there. It was really interesting to watch the crocodiles because they would sit there with their mouths open because they don't have sweat glands, so that's how they air condition themselves. Looks pretty nasty though. Also at the Hippo pools were this herd of giraffe and zebra. We got the opportunity to see them integrated and enjoying the local grasses. There were other vehicles there as well, watching the same scene. 3 of the giraffe decided to walk over to the river's edge. 1 decided to cross, and we're counting that as our first river crossing. And there he goes, crossing across the river. The other 2 started across and then got nervous and decided to turn around and go back. And we don't know why, because it was a very simple crossing. There was no fear, but the crocodile was on the bank. And what do you think they did? They went back to the bank where the crocodile was. This is a little bee eater. He was our surprise while we were waiting for the giraffes to cross. We then got to see a large herd of elephant, many different ages. Again, they were super comfortable with having jeeps around them. This is a saddle-billed stork with impala behind it. A lappet-faced vulture. There are two there. Then we saw some lions having dinner. You'll notice that milky part is the stomach. They pull that out and leave it aside so that other scavengers don't know that there's a kill there just yet. This is an older wildebeest that was killed. You can tell because of the curved horns. It's interesting gymnastics. Another pride of lions eating. The lion above Karen's head is an older female that has to wait her turn to eat. This is a younger wildebeest that was killed. You can tell that by the straight horns. Big teeth that can be up to 7 centimeters long. They actually chew on the sides of their mouth because that's where they are able to cut through cartilage and bone. And those mouths are also used to clean one another. Not all for bad. We think this is the herd that the wildebeest came from. That was dinner that evening. Yet another pride of lions eating yet another wildebeest. They only take what they need. The afternoon golden hour light on this beautiful female lion. These are Maasai ostrich, different from the other ostrich we saw at the other locations. We were excited about seeing wildebeest, even in small numbers, not realizing what we were about to see. We spotted a serval cat. What beautiful markings. Just like fingerprints, they're all different. It was amazing to have this opportunity because they are hunting at the dusk time frame to be able to see it in such good light. The ears themselves with the white follow me markings and the beautiful ringed tail. Now we're in hunting mode. These cats are very much like house cats. They're about twice the size, I would say, if I was guessing. And to watch them slowly stalk with the tail twitch, looking and seeing something that none of us can see right now. Relaxing for a moment. Are we going to jump? Are we going to pounce? What's going to happen? Get ready for the pounce. There we go. Unfortunately, we came up empty-handed. Such a beautiful creature. We ended up seeing 3, this larger one and 2 smaller ones on another day. We had a very stressful moment with this one though. It went up on the other ridge and a hyena followed. And if you look carefully, you can see the hyena in the foreground and the serval cat near the top of the photo. Here is a troop of baboons with an impala. The reason we came to Kenya was to see the Great Migration. We thought of it as just river crossings. We since learned that it is this large migration of over 2 million antelope, about 1.5 million wildebeest, about 250,000 zebra, and 250,000 gazelle and impala that do this migration through Tanzania and Kenya. In different parts of the year, they're in different segments of the migration because they're following the rains, which means when the rains happen, then the grasses grow. So they're constantly looking for food. So they're following the rains in order to get to the high grasses. We specifically wanted to see the river crossings. That's why we went to the Maasai Mara. If we were super interested in seeing a lot of babies, then we should have gone in January to March in the southern part of the migration. There were still plenty of babies to see, but not in quite the quantities that there are in the beginning of the year, apparently. This migration is fascinating in that it spans 2 countries, multiple counties, and I'm assuming private property as well. So what that means is all of these entities need to work together to make sure that these wild animals get to do this migration that they've been doing for millennia. Absolutely amazing. When they come into the Maasai Mara area, they come in from the south. Our camps are at the north. It took us about 2 hours to get to the southern area down here. And it was a long drive because it was on a dirt road. Once the herds are in the Maasai Mara area, they work their way up north and they go across the river, the green areas that you see. They go back and forth across the rivers. They work their way up. They continue working their way all the way up to the north, and then they exit in the southeast. here we are on our way to our first river crossing. Say hi to Karen and Dennis. We had a treat of seeing a baby giraffe no more than a few weeks old. To me, they were almost like a Shar-Pei because of the excess skin around their neck, but it makes sense to me. And then we got to see them with the backdrop of the beautiful hot air balloons. And on the west side of the river, what did we also see? Lions. Yes, lions were everywhere. Then we ran across this bull elephant. Our guide stopped the vehicle and waited to make sure that the bull elephant was comfortable and calm because they tend to be aggressive towards jeeps. And we thought everything was fine, so we continued to move forward until this happened. That elephant mock charged our vehicle. It was so much fun. We had different types of traffic every day. This day it was zebra. And then we saw wildebeest mixed in with zebra. But we saw wildebeest. We saw a lot of wildebeest. And see how tall the grasses are? That's why they're moving. Do you see all those little brown specks? Those are all wildebeest. Every single brown thing you see there is a wildebeest. We saw thousands and thousands of wildebeest, which cracked us up that we were taking pictures of onesie-twosie wildebeest on the other side of the river when there were thousands waiting for us. Every single brown spot you see in this photo is a wildebeest. Another beautiful sky shot. We also saw evidence of a leopard. If you're squeamish, turn away. This was an impala that had a bad day, but the leopard had a good day. Near the leopard tree was a smaller herd of elephants. They were very close to the vehicle, so it enabled us to get some really up-close shots. Look at that grain of their skin and those beautiful tusks. Interesting how many elephants' tusks grow differently. We also saw some buffalo, not a lot of buffalo, but we did see some buffalo. And there were oxpeckers on them, just like there were in the other sites, and mud too. We made it to our first crossing, the fig tree crossing. We drove up, and within 5 minutes, we were settled and a crossing started. That's almost unheard of. Amazing luck. The wildebeest come up to the river, they take a drink, they look around to see if there's any predators around, determine if it's safe, and then they start crossing. We never actually saw any predator action at any of the crossings that we saw. Here's a hippo looking on to the action, and you can see how deep the water is in this crossing. You can see them leaping through. Sometimes there were small rocks or a sandy riverbed, and other times there were large rocks. You can see as this one's getting out how large of a rocks they are trying to struggle over. And with that, they tend to sprain their legs or break their legs, which makes them an easy meal. But in this case, everybody got across safe. Once that crossing was done, we were able to enjoy the 36 or so hippos that were in the pool right in front of us. And then we saw some hippo sex action. So here's a new baby hippo being created before your very eyes. The female is under there. Here's a mama female with an older calf and a younger calf. This just shows how difficult it is to get space. There's generally 50 vehicles on each side of the river. And if you don't get a good position, you get pictures like this with another vehicle in it. Sometimes you get lucky and people move, or you can find a new position and then you're able to get a better picture. But to see the force and the intensity of these wildebeest as they go across the river, in this case it looked like it was more of a sandy bottom, something much simpler for them to cross. Again, no predators. And they literally leap out of the water. They exited the riverbed in a pathway that was near our vehicle. And they all went to safety to the long grasses, which is the whole reason they came across the river. We barely had time to see that and turn around, and yet another herd arrived to do a crossing. Do you see the number of vehicles waiting? There are equal numbers on both sides of the river. And they are ready to cross. This is an entire crossing, so you can see it from start to finish. So there's the dominant male at the very beginning, checking things out, looking at it, taking a drink of water, The initial set of wildebeest are following behind it. There's probably several thousand in this herd. They walk across. It looks like a fairly simple crossing. There doesn't seem to be any large rocks like there were in the others. They seem fairly calm and capable of just standing there and taking a drink, right? The Mara River is actually low because they're experiencing a drought right now. So it's about 2 to 3 feet lower than it normally is, so that makes for an easier crossing. They have a fairly simple exit, one without large rocks. But as they exit, the ground gets wetter and wetter and wetter, and that creates more difficulty for those that follow. But do you see the dust in there and how difficult it is to take photos? For the photographers, they're able to take those amazing action photographs of this type of river crossing. I find that absolutely unbelievable because there's dust, there is poor placement of the vehicle because you never know where they're actually going to cross. There is lighting issues. There is, you can't get out of the vehicle and stand somewhere issues. There's so many reasons why you can't get good photos of this. But I am amazed now at the photos that I see of a crossing that are just stop action beautiful. You can see there are hundreds and hundreds crossing right before your very eyes. They're stopping to take a drink. The whole reason they're crossing the river, I alluded to it earlier, is because they're trying to get to the grasses on the other side of the river. Now, the question is how do they know where to cross? On the map that I showed you earlier, there were little red markings and it indicated it with names of what the different crossings were called. Well, for sure the wildebeest can't read, and they certainly don't know how to read a map, but they do know that every single year they do this migration, and for those wildebeest that are born into this herd, they know that they cross at this point. There's something about the topography or the smell or the markings or something that lets them know that this is where they cross. They wouldn't go and cross somewhere else, even though it's a perfectly viable crossing. They only cross in these spots because there's learned behavior year after year. There were older wildebeest, fully adult wildebeest, and very young wildebeest that were making this crossing. Again, we didn't want to miss seeing babies, and we were so excited that there were still some babies to see. This is a very simple crossing. There's, again, no predators here at all. The wildebeest are able to take their time. They had to walk a long way. We were able to see them from across the river coming across the hill. And the migration itself is part of a much larger story. We thought it was just all about the river crossings. We had no idea that the river crossings were a very small portion of the migration story. The migration story is about their travel through 2 different countries and multiple counties. But more importantly, crossing the plains and the savanna and doing it in the herd size that they do. There's generally a dominant male, and they follow single file line behind that dominant male, and then as the line extends, it gets wider and wider, almost like an arrow head. It gets wider and wider, and more wildebeest follow. So they keep following the dominant male from place to place, to grassland to grassland. In some cases, we saw the herds would bisect, and they would go back and forth and decide, do we want to cross here? Do we want to wait? Do we want to wait 10 minutes? Do we want to wait 4 hours? Whatever their decision is. And the dominant male would try to keep control of this herd of thousands of wildebeest. And then some younger wildebeest would say, forget it, we're going across. And as soon as they start going across, the rest of the wildebeest follow them. So it was really interesting to see how it's truly like a crowd mentality. As soon as one starts going, they all start going, and then they all start pushing each other. And as they're pushing each other down the hill, it again can create problems with leg sprains, leg breaks. And we did see some unfortunate situations like that, where the wildebeest were injured. We also saw a baby that was got lost its way and maybe stopped to take a drink and then looked up and everybody was gone, and it just stayed there. And it was unfortunate because it ended up passing. In almost every migration crossing that we saw, though, was a group of wildebeest would start to come down the hill. They would take a drink, they would look, and then they would turn around and decide, nope, we're not going to cross. Even though thousands of wildebeest had crossed just moments before, it didn't matter. They decided, nope, we're not going to do it. So if you take a look at the ones on the right, you see they came down and now they're going back. So some are going to the left and crossing, and the others are going to the right. They may cross in about 10 minutes, and they may wait for the next herd to come, or they may wait for another time or another day to make their decision as to when they're going to come across. But in every single case, it was interesting to see that there was always a group that didn't actually cross. And now you have experienced a river crossing. Once they crossed, we were able to take our time to look at the hippos basking in the sun. Rarely do we see hippos out of the water. And here they are safe, looking for long grass. I turned to my right and I thought I saw a plastic bag. I did not. I was seeing a rock python, a very large, about 20-foot long python. It had eaten a few days ago. It had a big lump in it. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it was sunning itself, getting its strength for the day. Near it were these 3 little birds. If I knew their name, I would tell you, and if you know what their name is, please let me know in the comments below. Here's a better picture of one. This bird is a fish eagle. We saw many of these at our other locations eating. This antelope is a Coke's hartebeest. And this is a tawny eagle. We also saw several of these in Samburu. These lappert-faced vultures are warming up their feathers for the day. Woolly-necked vultures putting their heads fully into the carcass to eat. These yellow-billed storks are fishing. They're putting their open beaks in the water and chasing the fish into their beak area. This is a sacred ibis. There are multitudes of these. This is an African jacana. We only saw a few. This is a white-faced whistling duck with 3 young. Do you see the bums in the air? An African spoonbill, proudly showing its spooned bill. The birds congregated around ponds each day, and we were able to see them feed. We saw gray herons, great white herons, sacred ibis, and the African jacana all together. It was fun to watch them fish. We actually never saw anything catch and eat anything except birds. In this case, you're about to see a frog who had a bad day, and a bird that got a meal. Different vehicles would stop and see what we were watching and then start again. And when they started their vehicles again, the birds would fly off and it made for a fabulous photo opportunity. This great white heron has a beautiful mirrored image. The boundless African skies are above this giraffe and the zebra and wildebeest. It was a beautiful, crisp, clear day. It was very cold in the mornings. We were totally bundled up. It was about 50 degrees plus wind chill with the Jeep movement. Hyenas were everywhere and they were beautiful. It's the spotted hyena. We saw this pack of hyenas. There must have been at least 8 or 10 individuals of different ages. It was so interesting to see them scouring the hillside. They primarily eat smaller game or scavenge what's been left behind. This interesting guy is a marabou stork. Many different types of stork in the Mara. This is a long-crested eagle. Today's traffic is brought to you by Wildebeest. They were on the road by the 1,000. The Jeeps are supposed to yield to the animals, so we had to wait until they moved out of the road to pass. That morning, our guide had heard that there were cheetahs in the area where this far left Jeep is. And we pulled up to where some other Jeeps were, and we were so excited, and we're like, wow, we're gonna get to see a cheetah. And what did we see? A lion, sleeping, like we do every day. We went a little further down the road and found this mama cheetah with her 4 cubs. It was magical. She moved them up to a local hill that was near the picnic tables, for those that are familiar with the area. It was so much fun to see them bounce and play, and to see how watchful she was. You will see them again, I promise. After we left them, we found yet another herd of wildebeest. See how short the grasses are? That means another herd had already come through and decimated the grasses. Those grasses were at least 3 feet long prior to the herd getting there. You can see how massive this herd is. In another section, we found them by the hill, and I'm going to be quiet here for a moment so you can hear what wildebeest sound like. We then went back to the river crossing area, and yet another herd had arrived. Again, the same thing over and over again. A lead dominant male would come down, survey the area, have a drink of water, make sure everything was safe, and then they would start crossing. After a while, one wildebeest would end up pushing another wildebeest, and they would all start moving forward. There were thousands of wildebeest coming through. We saw 3 crossings in one day, and we saw 9 crossings altogether. This crossing specifically, they came out right next to our vehicle, not 20 feet from where our vehicle was. We were absolutely not expecting that at all. The people in the next Jeep over got quite the view and quite the pictures, I am sure. And here you can see everybody got across safe and sound. This beautiful bird is a lesser striped swallow. They were throughout the bushes as we were waiting at the crossings. This is a tawny-flanked Prinia. Another day, another crossing, we could see them coming from across the ridge. In this case, they came down a very, very steep hill, and they ended up coming down in 3 columns. And we had to wait about 3 hours for them to make the decision to cross, so I was able to actually get through a book I'd been wanting to read. But look at the dexterity of going down this nearly sheer hill. Zebra tended to be in the mix each time. Once they came down the hill, they checked for safe conditions. It was almost glass-like river conditions. The river was so low due to the drought that it made for a very easy crossing. There always seemed to be a zebra in the mix. You can always count on getting pictures of the rear of an animal. This is an example of a crossing that didn't happen. They formed on the other ridge and never crossed. So instead, we decided to have a nice sundowner that afternoon. The beauty of the ever-changing skies of Africa and the mixed species. Another traffic incident, this time a hyena giving us some side-eye. A giraffe with 2 young. They don't come in twins that I'm aware of, so they must have been just from the same herd. An African black-shouldered kite. We then moved to Little Governors for our last 3 nights of our trip. A unique part of Little Governors is that you approach it via boat. It is an exquisite property around a marsh where there's a resident hippo and many, many birds. We had tent number 17 on the far end. Our tent, as usual, was pure luxury. This is the only kind of camping I'm willing to do, with a very comfortable bed and a full bathroom, with or without a curtain or walls in the shower. I don't care. It has plumbing. Our view was into the marsh right in the area where the hippo usually hangs out. Another early morning start in order to enjoy the Governor's Balloon Safari. This is a really unique way to get to see the African plains, and I highly suggest it for anybody going to this area. We were able to enjoy the sunrise and drift ever so quietly with the exception of the burners. And I can tell you, with the burners, it was interesting. The elephants did not like them at all. They were very nervous about the burners. We flew very close to the ground at some times and very high at others. It was a very unique perspective, a different way to see the savannah, and to see it not from the road, but directly from above. It was certainly a memory that we will never forget. Here's a small sample of what we enjoyed. Of the quiet beauty. You see that hyena running across the plains? I believe there were 4 balloons that went out at the same time that we did. And you can see how dry it is. I understand that it's supposed to be greener at this time of year, but we were there when we were there, and we got to see this beautiful, amazing scene. Again, the elephants were concerned, so they bunched up in a herd and tried to put the young behind them. We also got to see watering holes, and those marks you see in the ground are the game paths. This is a unique experience that we will remember for years. Even though the basket was full, we felt like we had the entire space to ourselves. We flew with these people, and everybody was really friendly and nice. They also served a great breakfast, and they had bathrooms. That was exciting. A yellow-throated longclaw. More traffic this morning. This time it was 3 marabou stork. They were on their way to a pond on the other side of the road, where they met up with their buddies and began fishing. We tripped over some more lions, but this was different. Our guide told us to stand by with our cameras at ready. It was a male and female off on their own with a younger male off to the side. I guess his job was to be the Uber Eats and bring in the food. This male here, his name is Chongo. We saw him the other day drinking by the watering hole. Now he's on the other side of the river. He had actually been in an altercation a couple of days before with some other Pride members. But what happens here is the female lets him know when she's ready. This happens about every 30 minutes over about a 1 to 2 day period. The male will come up and do his thing. He might bite her. She will then indicate that she is over this experience and done, and then roll over onto her back. This happens every 30 minutes for 1 to 2 days straight. Chongo then does a cat flop. He deserves his rest after all of this hard work. Interesting to see the teeth on that female. And funny to see her on her back. A white-browed cuckool. Then we decided to visit Tanzania, if only a few feet in. There we are straddling the Kenya-Tanzania line. See how short the grass is? The wildebeest have been there. Yet another male lion. This time he had taken down a wildebeest of his own. Whenever we saw a vehicle somewhere, we knew a lion was close. We feel this was a 2, 3, 4-year-old male, so on the younger side. We decided to stop and take a moment with this crocodile. He's smiling. One afternoon, the skies opened and it rained so hard. So we buttoned up the Jeep, put on our jackets, and made our way back to camp. This is either a Nile rocket frog or a reed frog. I'm not sure which, but there were many by our tent that night. Again, we decided to go find the cheetah. She was staying in the same spot just south of the picnic trees area. And we found her again. It was just magic all over again. She decided again to move the cubs. You see them 4 right there, and see how well they blend into the grass? She decided to move them near the road. So here they are sitting next to the road. And if you squint, you can see them just ahead of the other vehicle. They were that close. And there they were on the road. They were running around, tearing around, and she was checking out the impala that were on the other side of the road. Sometimes you just gotta sit. See the yellow school bus off to the right? Those kids are part of a wilderness course where they get to go on safari. And they got the opportunity to see this mama cheetah and her 4 cubs. They were very friendly and always waved at all of the cars that went by. That was the second day we saw the cheetah. The third day we saw the cheetah, it was remarkable. We were able to spend about an hour with her and the kids. They stayed on this one termite mound, which made it excellent for photos. There was only 3 other vehicles at the time, so we didn't have to leave and make room for anybody else. Cheetahs have a hard time in the world as they can only hunt during the day. And they have a lot of predators that are looking for their cubs, hyenas, lions, others. So it's pretty impressive to have 4 cubs. They're about 2 to 3 months old. They're darker on the bottom and lighter on top, so they can hide easily in the grass. When it comes time for mama to go hunt for herself, she will tell the cubs to stay still with a particular noise, and then she'll go off 2-3 miles, maybe 4 miles away, and she'll kill something and eat it for herself, and then come back to her cubs. It was like they were posing for us. The foreground is Kenya, the background Tanzania. Such cute little faces. Mama showing off her big teeth with a yawn. The kids seem to be in constant movement. Much of the time she is spent teaching them how to hunt. You see how the little one is trying to get at her jugular. Of course, their teeth are so small, he would never make it through her skin. But she lets him practice because that's what she needs to do. Such a patient mother, and such a good mother training all 4 to become good hunters. Unfortunately, not all 4 will make it to adulthood if statistics are our guide. It was amazing to be able to get to spend an hour with this cheetah mama and her 4 cubs. There was a rare moment occasionally when they would all sit still, but it wouldn't last for long. One was generally trying to fight with another, or they would go play in the grasses. It was interesting to see how they would stay so close to mama and then at times go up to 20-30 feet away. We got nervous when they started coming towards the vehicle. They never got close to it, but we were nervous about it because we didn't want mama coming at us. But they turned around. She must have made a sound or something. They turned around and they all raced back. It was about 9 a.m. in the morning, and I would say about 65 to 70 degrees with a slight wind. Perfect. We came to the Mara to see the migration, and the extra special bonus was to spend time with this mama cheetah and her 4 cubs. Another magical moment. After we left her, we encountered yet more traffic, this time from ostriches, the Maasai ostrich. These are the 2 females of the 2 female and male that were in the road. A second monitor lizard. I was over the moon. We saw many different troops of baboons walking across the savannah. They were taking their time going through the bushes, finding things to eat, carrying their young, and going about their daily lives. A rupal starling on the left and a lilac-breasted roller on the right. A white-bellied bustard. Oh look, yet another lion, a male lion. He was away from his kill and enjoying the shade. It was a little warmer at that time, closer probably to 80 degrees, and beautiful sunny day. Look at all those flies on him. Equitably distant from the kill on the other side was this female. We went back to the crossing area again and saw another herd building up on the ridge. This became a very interesting crossing for us because we were held back by the ranger and we had to wait until the wildebeest started going down and proving that they were crossing. You'll see the vehicles on the left are racing across the ridge, and now we're able to move forward, and it's all about getting that good position. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. You see all the wildebeest in the center there and all of the vehicles with all of the little heads sticking up through the roof. Very dramatic shots from this crossing specifically. The wildebeest were going down a very steep hill and they were leaping into the river. It was relatively shallow, again because of the drought, and they were able to make it to the very safe sandbar on the other side, and then they were able to walk out to safety. And we turned around and there was yet another herd waiting to cross. All total, we saw 8 wildebeest crossings. This was the final one here, and 1 giraffe crossing for a total of 9. a secretary bird where you can see its plumes on top of its head, and a third monitor lizard right next to the Jeep. These wildebeest need to keep walking after they cross the river to get to longer grasses. It was very sunny this day, closer to the 80 degrees with very little wind. The vultures are on top, and the buffalo are seeking shelter in the water. It was really nice to spend time with these 3 elephants. They gave us opportunity for some beautiful pictures. Mama was concerned about us, but we were really far away. She just didn't care for the Jeep being there. And this elephant just looked so stately. Every day when we went back to the camp, we would see this hippo by himself in this pool. They are social animals, so we didn't know why he was alone. A Bataleur eagle. We found these 2 southern ground hornbills near the bridge on the way back to the camp. The most unusual markings and beautiful lashes. In the same pond, we saw a giant kingfisher and a malachite kingfisher. This was the last giraffe we saw. She was pregnant, although I couldn't tell. But check out that prehensile tongue, reaching amongst those acacia thorns to get the goodies. You will notice the gardener in the Mara does a perfect job of keeping everything at the same height. That is the work of the giraffes. Much like fingerprints, each giraffe has its own pattern. One afternoon, we got to meet a gentleman by the name of James. He is a Maasai warrior, and he regaled us with his stories of spearing a lion as part of his coming-of-age ceremony. A simple and proud beginning. Now he has a home and a cell phone and herds of cattle. A Rupo's long-tailed starling on the left and a violet-backed starling on the right. A spectacled mouse bird. We have reached our final afternoon, and it's time to say goodbye to the Mara and goodbye to Kenya. We hope to see you again.